So, as I start with every meeting, this is a public and recorded meeting of the Kubernetes community. Today is September 22nd, and we are going to start with a demo from Univa about their new Navops tooling. So, we're really excited to see it, and then we will get moving on with the rest of the agenda, which I suspect is going to be 1.4 release heavy, and then lots of reminders about 1.5 planning and upcoming things in the community. So, Rob, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself and give us some info about Univa?
Yeah, I'm going to quickly unload the heavy lifting over to Cameron. You can go ahead and share your desktop, Cameron, and take over for me. I get the easy part. So I'm Rob with Navops. Cameron's our chief architect. What we're showing today is our pluggable scheduler for Kubernetes. So sit right at the Kubernetes scheduler level, talk through the API, and bring enterprise policy management and scheduling to the container world. Obviously, it'll run on any Kubernetes distribution. And having said all that, I'll just turn it over to Cameron to show you how it works. Thanks, everyone.
So first off, I would like to ask if everyone can see my screen at this point.
Yes.
Yep.
Well, good. Okay, great. So yeah, in this demo, what we're going to show is kind of a hypothetical situation where a dev team is looking to use Kubernetes to run some CI jobs for both their front-end and back-end development subteams, while also using their Kubernetes cluster for some other work. We're going to be showing some of the scheduling features of Navops Command and how it can make all this work. So in my demo environment right here, I have a single node Minikube VM up and running, and I also have Navops Command already installed. So Navops Command runs inside of Kubernetes as pods. So we have our first pod there, which has 3 containers. One is the core component of Navops Command, which is the scheduler. We also have then a bridge between the Kubernetes API model and our scheduler. We also have our own internal persistent data store in etcd. Additionally, we have our web UI, which provides a graphical user interface into our scheduler, consuming our API. So jumping right into our use case, I have put together a kind of a sample backend CI job here, and it's going to be using a job controller. The things of note are the namespace here, which is development, and then now down here, a couple of navops.io labels that we support. So the first one here is a project, and projects in Navops Command are a configuration object that allow you to attach policy and quotas, and then attach these projects to various pods in your Kubernetes cluster. It allows you to have a finer grained control of policy without having to put it on each individual pod. We also have here our owner, which is a way of kind of representing who's responsible for this type of work. This CI job is going to be created by our CI infrastructure, so we're going to mark the owner as CI. And then the last thing here, you see we're using the scheduler annotation to use the third-party schedule features of Kubernetes. In our demo here, Navops Command is not running as the default scheduler. It's running as a third-party scheduler. So this is necessary in order for Command to pick up this pod and for the normal Kubernetes scheduler to ignore it. So the first thing we'll do is we'll go in and we'll create our project, and then we'll create our namespace. So jumping here into the UI, I'm going to go to the projects and create our backend project. Now I'm going to jump over here, and I'm going to create our development namespace. So creating the namespace here creates it both in Navops Command and in Kubernetes. I'm going to enable that namespace so it can accept work. And then I'm going to actually add a little ACL here with my backend project. So this will make it so that only backend tag projects can run in this new namespace that I created. So now that's done, and I can do a kube control create -f jobs backend. So we see that pod's already now up and running. Everything's working as we had expected. So now we have our backend work. Let's go and add our front end work. So this is very similar to our backend job controller. The only things really different are front ends all over the place, and we have a front end project. So I'm going to go and I'm going to submit this straight away. But of course, now it won't be able to run because we don't have the front end project yet, and we don't have it enabled on our namespace. So let's go and take care of that. So I'm going to show here something, another component of Navops Command I haven't shown yet, and that's our command line utility. So we have a command line utility called Navops Control, which is very much like kube control, but it works with the Navops API server. So the syntax is very similar. We're going to use this. We're going to create this project that we have here. And you see, as soon as I do that, it's available immediately in our web UI. So our API server supports the streaming of changes, very much like the Kubernetes API server. And our UI subscribes to those streaming changes. So changes are immediately available on all clients. So now if I jump back over here, I'm going to add the front-end project, which is now available as a selection, into my access controls, and I'll click Save. Now, we may get immediately lucky, and this could start running right away, but generally it takes a little bit because when a pod is violating policy in Navops Command, it gets put in a slower back-off queue, which is more like 30 seconds where it will be rescheduled. So in the sake of time here, I'll move on to the next piece, and then we'll come back and I'll show that this is running. So we're going to go on to the quota section, which is a way we're going to use to protect our Kubernetes infrastructure from ever running too many CI jobs at once. And what we're going to do here is enable quotas on our development team. If you remember, I use the CI user as the owner. So that's one of our users in the system. And I'm going to limit that to 10 pods on this namespace. So what that means is in total, CI will not be able to run more than 10 pods in this namespace at any one point. And at this point, we should have this up and running. Okay, cool. So our front end pod's up and running. So now that I have my quota in place and saved, I can go and scale up my job controllers. So let's get those. So I'll do the back end first, scale it up to 20, scale up the front end to 20. And now what I'll do here real quick is we'll look at all the non-pending jobs. And you can see only 10 of these pods are running. And I'll show you what actually this looks like in the whole system. So if we just do all of these, you'll see that there's the 40 in there, but only 10 are allowed to run. And if we actually just look at the pending ones, we'll see that they're pretty much all back-end. And that's because I scaled up back-end first. And so those were all the ones that were created first by the job controller. So they're all the ones that got scheduled first. This is almost certainly not what you would want in an environment like this. You would want some type of share between your front end and your back end work. And that's where our proportional share tree comes in. So this is a policy, one of the many scheduling policies in Navops Command that allows you to divvy up your resources of your cluster and allocate them to varying users or projects. So I'll show you quick how this works. Let me create entries for my back end and my front end project. And we can get rid of this guy too. This is just a placeholder for the default project. Before I click save, I'm going to start up a watch call here so we can look at what's running. So they're all back ends. It's when I hit save here, though, we'll see now I have it set at 50-50. And what we'll see happen here is front end jobs will start coming in as these back end jobs finish. So right there, you see the next two that came in. We'll probably see a third one there. The share tree actually keeps track of some amount of history. So when, like, let's say there wasn't enough front end to fill up their share, the back end could use that extra capacity, but then would have to pay it back to the front end. So that happened a little bit here. Our back end ran a whole bunch of work before our front end had any chance. So we may see the front end swing a little past 50% to make up for the share that it didn't use or it let back end borrow in the beginning. Once we get up to about 5 here, I'm going to cut it back to, I'm going to change the share, and we'll see how we can dynamically reconfigure the share tree in a running cluster. But at this point, I haven't had a chance to look at any chat messages. Were there any questions?
I don't see any questions yet, but we can certainly take some. We've got about 5 more minutes just to time both the questions and what you want to cover.
Yeah, okay. So since we're at the point now with about the 50-50 or getting past the 50-50, I'll show what happens if I go over here and slide this over to 90. And we'll just let this sit. So yeah, I'm ready at this point for any questions. Obviously, Navops Command has a lot more features. You know, with the time for the demo, I just wanted to make sure that we got one kind of all the way shown.
Well, you're getting some looks awesome commentary, so that's great fun. But questions from anyone?
I would just point out too, Cameron, that proportional share tree is actually a tree, so you can have layers below backend where you break that out into project teams and users, and that can be multi-layer, and you can move those all around.
Yeah, exactly. So we can allow you to like let's say you wanted to model a development team and a production team. You know, you could have a top level production and development, and then underneath that, you know, different teams from each group, if that was what you wanted to do. It supports an arbitrarily large depth and hierarchy in that sense.
Cool. I'm not seeing any questions. You have maybe one more shiny thing you want to share?
Anything you want to add, Rob?
I think just, you know, the product's available for download now. It came out last week. It leverages our Grid Engine scheduler, so it's very robust. And if people want to try it, just go to the website, navops.io, and check out Command. We'd be happy to take your feedback. We're going to be moving very quickly with new features on the product, and we're certainly interested in people testing and lots of feedback, and the more the merrier. So thanks for taking the time to listen to us.
Sweet.
Yeah, and if you do download, one quick thing to add, we do have a whole bunch of other policy examples in here in our documentation that you could follow and try out on your own.
Cool. We've got 2 questions, which is awesome. Is it on par with the OSS scheduler, as in will new scheduler features go into Navops 1?
So that is a great question, and it's something that, you know, we keep our eyes definitely on the scheduling advancements of the core scheduler, and it's 100% our goal to maintain all of the functionality that you express on pods when it comes to determining, you know, how you want your work to be scheduled. So we will have obviously a different model for configuring, let's say, taints and tolerances in our scheduler, but we'll support that type of syntax on pods that come into the system. Does that answer the question?
So it's more your own scheduler than a front-end interface for the open source scheduler.
Correct.
Okay. So we had another question is the front end your dashboard? The front end you were scaling up, I presume.
Oh, that front end in the demo?
Mm-hmm.
No, that was just, you know, as a job controller, it was simulating continuous integration work. It was just a random sleep between 60 and 90 seconds. So the work that I was scaling was just for the sake of the demo.
Yeah, just demo.
Example workloads, exactly.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, the response from Nicholas, who asked the question about the scheduler, was maybe consider making the scheduler even more composable, because your front end is quite compelling. What happens when resource limits are set on a pod, CPU, or memory? How well does Navops coexist with these settings, or will they be overridden?
So Navops follows the standard way of setting limits on pods for memory and CPU, which is what we support right now. It will, so when you put your limits on your pods, it will actually schedule those accordingly inside of Navops. We're looking at the node objects in Kubernetes, so we build our node representations based off of the reported data through the API server. As new resources are added, this is something that we're very interested in. We want to add, you know, as many resources as possible, you know, that are made aware to the scheduler and that can be scheduled against. This is something our core technology is very powerful at. So the scheduler in Navops is our, you know, it's based on our HPC scheduler, and you know, we can support in our normal production environments. You know, we often have people using 20 or 30 different types of resources that they might be scheduling against. So it's something that we're definitely looking for, you know, increased support with metrics and rich, you know, selection of resources during pod scheduling.
Awesome. Yeah, and the chat is talking, Clayton's pointing out that this is your 15 years of combined scheduler design around practical use cases now applied to our super deluxe awesome open source project. So thank you for all of the work that you've done toward this, and thank you for demoing it. Okay, great. Thank you. More questions? How did they get them to you? So Rob, do you have a preferred mechanism?
No, just send them directly to me if you want. It's just rlalonde, Lalonde at univo.com.
Fantastic.
Or hit
guys,
the website.
You can also drop your email into the chat, and that would be helpful, Rob. Thanks. All right, so I know you're all waiting to hear the latest and the updates from 1.4 and Philip's extraordinary amount of communication and effort that has gone into this. So Philip, I think you said yes, you were here.
Yeah, I'm here.
Hooray! Do you want to talk about 1.4 now?
Yeah, I'm going to leave my camera off just because I'm a little bit under the weather today.
Well, I hope you feel better.
Yeah, no, of course. All right, so release update. So I'll start out with the status. We're looking really quite good right now. The release blocking tests are stable in green.
Whee!
The automated upgrade tests are stable. There's one remaining issue that we're triaging, but it's very low risk. We're not worried about it. The manual upgrade tests are complete and passed. Issues in the 1.4 milestone look complete, and the P0 flakes have all been triaged as non-severe. So, and I caught a beta 10 out last night.
So keep testing betas is the first point.
Yeah, keep testing the betas. This one's basically it, I think.
Right. We actually got a really good issue identified from some beta user out in the community recently. You mentioned that yesterday, I think, in the rundown meeting, right?
Yeah, we did. That was actually really great. We discovered something that was a real issue, would have required a patch release, and someone found it.
Yeah, which is another very obvious example of ways that people in the community can help us make Kubernetes that much more awesome is play with the early releases.
Yeah, and the late releases. Both of them.
Early as in before we go 1.0 or 0.0 on this.
Yes. All right. And I think there's one thing I don't have here in the notes, but I need to follow up on some Federation stuff after this meeting. That's the only thing that, other than the triage on my plate, that I need to follow up on. So the schedule from here on out, going backwards, Monday we're going to have the binaries pushed. Hopefully have the release notes docs and binaries all up at the same time. And that gives us 2 days of test soaking over the weekend. The tests take a long time to run. Occasionally they flake. What we want to see is a nice, solid, continuous green test for 2 days before we get there. Friday, tomorrow, I'm reserving any changes for essentially, oh my God, things that might surprise us, take us by surprise. So there's nothing planned for that, but just in case. And there's also going to be work done there preparing for publishing docs and release notes. There's a little bit of work done in process for publishing the docs and generating stuff and getting it all copied over into the right places, I know. That brings us to today. So today you still have some responsibilities, everyone. Getting all your docs for 1.4.0 merged by the end of today. And that means probably end of the business day. You'll want to keep Devin up till midnight reviewing docs. And Aaron's working on putting together some really beautiful release notes. They're looking really good, and I'm really impressed, and they're much better than anything I was considering doing. So thank you, Aaron, for that. He's going to be reaching out to PR authors and feature owners to probably get clarifying information.
I think we're going to get a little bigger update from him in a minute or two, too.
Yes, I'll let him give the full update on that. And so today, really the only changes I have planned for code changes is reverting things that broke. When I accept the change, I ask for a rollback strategy. Since tomorrow I'm not planning on accepting any changes, that means I'm not planning on rolling anything back tomorrow. So today would be the last chance to roll anything back. And yesterday, Wednesday, was the last day planned to accept cherry pick changes. So if any of this is surprising to you and I need to be aware of something, obviously reach out to me on Slack as soon as possible. And that's my update.
Is there anything that you need help on in the next 48 hours that you have not already mentioned?
No, I don't think so. I think Aaron and Devin are the people that are going to need help.
Aaron and Devin. So Josh, Burgess, to your question, is there a canonical list of features now? I think we can go to the update from Aaron and possibly Ihor. He said he was joining later.
Yeah.
About what they need toward getting to a canonical list around features.
Sure, I can give an update based on where I'm at right now. So first, I'm going to try sharing my screen. Hopefully you all can see this. There are a whole bunch of things on this screen.
Yes.
All right. What we're looking at now is the spreadsheet that Ihor has been maintaining, and I super appreciate the help here. He emailed this out to Kubernetes dev yesterday and has asked all of the feature owners or maintainers to add a one-line release note description so that I can just be a dumb human and sort of copy paste the things and provide links to docs for each of these things. For the most part, if you're seeing an item in green here, that means everything is taken care of. The one exception I will call out here is that most of the Federation items need to have doc links added. There's also an issue where we're sort of tracking this stuff. I'm trying to sort of practice seeing if we can communicate this stuff out in the open. So Philip created this action required for 1.4 feature owner spreadsheet. Again, emailed this out to Kubernetes dev. If you're getting pinged on here, it's because you're either an author or an assignee to these feature issues, and I need updates from you. So I'm trying to communicate with folks about that information here. Let's see here. The other thing is if you know of any issues for 1.4, this is the known issue accumulator that you should be commenting on or linking issues to so that I as a human can go back and sort of collate all this information together. Let's see here. So the way the release notes look right now, first off, just to back up and give some context, you might be surprised to find out that the documentation for how to generate the release notes doesn't actually exist anywhere. I had the good fortune of talking with Eric Toon to sort of understand what he went through with the 1.3.0 release notes last time. So this is sort of an attempt to kind of reproduce what he's done, but fold in some of the new feature work that we've been doing to try and make it easier to track what's going on. So to the question of the authoritative list of what's in 1.4, I went with everything that was in the features repo that had the v1.4 milestone attached. And then I scraped all of the titles and have put in here sort of the one-line summary of all this stuff. You can see there are a lot of alpha features, there are a couple of beta features, and there are some stable features. Now, as a product person, this probably doesn't really help you holistically understand what the themes of Kubernetes are. There are a lot of things here related to federation, for example. So what I'd like to eventually do is once I have all of the information necessary to populate this, I'm going to convert this into a major themes section for Kubernetes to try and roughly describe. It seems like federation's a really big deal here, and we've done some great things on the node end of things, sort of validating the stack and performance testing of stuff. So I anticipate having sort of a draft of what that's going to look like, and I want to get that in front of people as soon as possible to try and get some sort of comments on whether we think this is good or not. I think
also a big theme around usability and improving the end user experience.
Absolutely. Moving forward, the other things that I really cared about, I mean, the reason I opened my big fat dumb mouth about doing release notes in the first place was I really care about this from the perspective of a cluster operator who is coming to version 1.4.0 for the first time from version 1.3.0. What are the surprising things that they're going to encounter? So that's why we have a known issues section. And this was at the suggestion of Philip Woodrock and just sort of something I noticed through the previous changelog. It seems like we need to talk about things that don't necessarily require action, but are kind of maybe surprising to cluster operators. So we've identified a couple things to the way kubectl interacts and the way deployments interact. If you are a feature owner and you know of other things related to this sort of style of thing, you need to be reaching out to me. And then finally, the most important one to me anyway, is the action required before upgrading as a cluster operator. I don't just want to go willy-nilly installing Kubernetes 1.4.0 on my production cluster. I want to know what things I need to be aware of before I do that. So this should call out all of the specific items I need to address before I can safely upgrade from Kubernetes 1.3.0 or any release thereof to Kubernetes version 1.4.0. The last thing that Eric sort of did on his own, I don't know if I have enough context to do this, was to call out some of the specific feature improvements for each of the individual cloud providers. So if there are things that have made the AWS experience significantly better, or things that have made the GCE experience or the Azure experience or the OpenStack experience all way better, I would love to hear about those so that I could put that in this section. If I find there's not enough stuff that sort of consolidates to that, I'll just end up stripping out this section entirely. This isn't entirely a manual process. I sort of was hoping there was some automated stuff to it. I managed to start using the release notes tool in the Kubernetes release repository, but then I'm just sort of trying to keep a running log of all the human manual things that I've been doing therein. My plan is to move what I'm doing out of this secret gist. I've pasted this gist link in the meeting notes, so anybody who has this link can take a look at it. You're welcome to add in comments or whatnot, but I didn't want to sort of have everybody jump in the pool and start actively working on this until I've had a chance to sort of consolidate just a little bit more information. I'm very open to input if folks would like to use a Google Doc instead of a pull request for sort of the last stab at this. But my intent is to hand off whatever we have to Philip by Friday and give him the keys to actually say, yes, these are the release notes, let's go forward with that. All right, I saw a couple things pop up in chat. I'm gonna stop sharing my screen real quick, but while I'm doing that, any questions based on that?
So I'm going to first say this is astonishing and way more detailed and way more user-friendly than anything we've put out before, which is not to say we didn't continue to improve each iteration, but this is amazing, Aaron, so thank you.
Thanks. Okay, so the release notes living in some official place outside of the gist, right? That's just like, I personally, I think the last time for release 1.3, I saw a Google Doc get slung around and a whole bunch of people dived in and collaboratively edited that. And maybe that's the way to do this, but I sort of, in some sense, I agree with Eric too, that as much as I would love to automate this, I really do think that it takes kind of a single human doing some machine learning with their brain to kind of summarize what the release is. And so I'd like to take a stab at that and then give folks a chance to give feedback there. So that's what the goal is to have something that looks like that by tomorrow. And if a pull request isn't an official enough place for that, I'm totally open to suggestion on where I should stage that instead.
So there will be, this will also be published when 1.4 comes out, of course.
Correct.
But it sounds like anybody who wants to help should reach out to you.
Yep, absolutely. My GitHub username is spiffxp. I live on the Kubernetes Slack as spiffxp. My email address is spiffxp@gmail.com or aaron.krickenberger@gmail.com. If you have anything you need to get in touch with me about, please do so.
Contact.
Aaron has said, Mike is saying Aaron has agreed to be our point of contact, so yay! And thank you, this is way better. Josh Burkus asks, there are a bunch of alpha features which are still missing docs. Should I assume that those are not likely to make 1.4? Yeah, go for it.
Josh, are these features in the feature repo today and marked as alpha?
Yes. Yeah, they're marked as alpha, but like I was looking at one, let me see if I can find it, where someone has queried the original PR author for docs. For like
so let me just jump in there real quick. I think we should have a much broader discussion on the effectiveness of the features repo, but I think that's outside of the scope of today. Yeah. But for sure, just I also had a really difficult time looking at these feature issues and extracting the information I needed from them, which is why I'm very appreciative of the manual spreadsheet that Ihor has put together. I like, as a programmer, it kind of drives me nuts that we don't actually have a single source of truth. I'm having to sort of collate a bunch of different disparate sources of information. But the spreadsheet has been a way more reliable place for me to get doc links from people once Philip started nagging them, and Ihor reached out very kindly.
So excuse me, I'm sorry. Oh, look, spam. So as I understood things, and Philip's not here because I think surprisingly he's got a cold.
I'm here.
Oh, he is here. Oh, wonderful. So, Philip, is it true? I thought that we had decided that you were going to poke all the people for docs in Google. Ihor was going to poke the CoreOS people. And for the remaining folks, I don't know if did we come up with a plan for that disjoint set?
Are we talking about the spreadsheet?
Yeah, like looking at the doc spreadsheet, I didn't see anything that was left remaining outside of Federation. Josh, do you have the items?
Yeah, but most of it has been addressed. I guess what I'm just trying to say is, yeah, the information has landed in a spreadsheet. It may not have made it all the way back to the features repo. I super apologize for that, but we're in flux trying to push towards the release. So I think you're going to find that the release notes, when they come out, will be a more authoritative place for that. And how we make sure that the feature issues are actually nice and clean and sanitary is probably a follow-on.
Yeah, well, I was looking at the features repo. To give you an idea of why I'm asking these questions is, I run a couple of Kubernetes meetups, and I want to promote the betas to users so that they test them. But it's hard to promote them if I can't say what's going to be in the next version.
So here's my question. How many of these do you have? Do you have like 3 or 4, or do you have like 40 of them that you feel don't have the docs?
Well, I noticed like 3 or 4.
Can you, does it make sense to send mail to Kubernetes dev and say, what's up with the docs? And then, we'll have people who are looking at their spreadsheets, and we'll try to make sure we poke them to do that today or tomorrow.
I want to look at the spreadsheet because this is from the features repo rather than from the spreadsheet.
Ah, okay.
Yep.
So can somebody actually post a link to the spreadsheet in chat?
The spreadsheet is also linked out of the community meeting notes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's there, and as far as I can see in the spreadsheet after our yesterday's meeting, so approximately 24 hours passed, and most of the features have been filled with the release note description that Aaron has used for the release notes, and most of the features has also the link to the docs with some pull requests or already merged documentation on the website.
The ones outstanding that I'm aware of are Federation, and the reason I was late for this meeting was I was talking to the Federation folks, and we have high confidence that all of them will be in today, except possibly Ingress, which we're going to either try to slide in today or maybe see if we can beg to slide in tomorrow.
Philip is graciously quiet there.
Yeah.
All right. Anybody have other questions around 1.4, the March to release? All right. I will make one mention of something that may affect some of you. We will cut the 1.4 release when it is ready. However, because of timing and Google constraints, our our PR around 1.4 will lag by a couple of days, and that is something we can't get around, but it surely shouldn't slow any of you from making whatever noise you want about it. But it is just a heads up that since we've done a lot of the PR in the past, it may look quieter than usual this time, but it is coming.
And it's big.
And it's big. And it'll be even better. Ferdinand says, attaboy, Aaron and Ihor, tons of work and great collation of information. Thank you. So yes, we cannot say thank you enough to Aaron and Ihor and Philip for driving 1.4 through features and release and release notes. This is a pile of work that is done on top of and in between all the work that they normally do for the rest of the project.
I believe we sang a song to Aaron in the last burn down meeting or something along those lines.
Wow, I missed the song.
So praise has been given, but more is definitely appreciated, I believe.
All right, well, I'm going to have to go find a rendition of that song at some point because I'm super amused.
The burn down meeting attendance is about to go up a lot, I think.
Right, they're singing now, apparently.
No. It's not good singing. But
it's not good. No. But it is hearty singing.
Yeah, in any case, yes, there's been a lot of praise, and they definitely do an amazing job.
Awesome. Thank you all for the efforts around this. So the next topic, which I don't actually have someone to really speak to because it's mostly hey guys, We're almost finished with 1.4. You know what that means? 1.5. So I have to find whoever is echoing or giving me echoes. So 1.5 planning is, I suspect, underway by many of you who have not been writing this release as closely as our 3 aforementioned stellar contributors. But 1.5 planning, I'm hoping next week and the following week to get some of the 1.5 feature reports and feature expectations out of the different special interest groups. So those of you who lead special interest groups, expect some pings from me, expect that you will be taking your conversations to spreadsheets and or eventually out to the features repo so that we can start talking about 1.5, what 1.5 looks like. This shouldn't be a huge surprise to anyone because we do this every time.
A bunch of teams I know I work with are already through this process with
Right.
SIGs.
So we just need to get it all presented. Yep. Which is awesome. So that's even more fantastic to know, as many of you have already done this. Hooray.
Just to reiterate Sarah's point and Michael's point, we at Google take this very seriously. We will, just like in 1.4, all Google features will appear in the repo. We truly do take this seriously, so please do contribute there if you can.
And a really good example, if you're trying to figure out the best way to do this, I think the Node team, at least in my experience, for the teams that I'm personally working with, I think the Node team did a really good job of having a balanced roadmap for 1.5 or plan for 1.5 that incorporates both Google and community and all these different companies that are on their spreadsheet that is externally available. So if you go and look at the Node SIG, you can see, I think, these links. And you'll see that there are P0s that, we call them P0s, which is our way of conveying that these are what we really, really are committing to this next short quarter. They're all there, and they all are aligned, at least in the Node SIG, even if they're from different business interests and different goals from each of those sources.
And I will take an action item to get the Node SIG spreadsheet into the notes from this meeting before I send them out.
Yeah, Don Chen did a really good job.
Yeah, Don has been frequently held as a high standard for leading nodes cross-company, or leading SIGs about Node across company.
Yeah, Don and Derek too, it's not just...
yes, Don and Derek, thank you. And you, Kemp from CoreOS also helps lead that.
Yeah.
I have also an update regarding 1.5 features, so I'm going to prepare the similar spreadsheet as we had for 1.4. I'm also going to prepare the draft version of 1.5 features that are already in the features repo, and we may start populating all of them together starting from the next week.
Fantastic, thank you, Ihor. All right, so that's 1.4, that's 1.5. Back to 1.3. Just because we get to do this, and we will be scheduling a 1.4 retrospective after we make this release again. And I'm hoping Jason Singer-Mars will be able to lead that again. He's been very helpful after the 1.2 and 1.3 releases, leading retrospectives. Out of the 1.3 retrospective, we had a lot of discussion about the late-breaking storage changes. And because that was a somewhat opaque process that people didn't necessarily feel was super well communicated, I requested that the storage SIG do a formal written retrospective. And I published that yesterday to Kubernetes Dev. There's also a link in the notes for this meeting. But that retrospective is really, it sets the bar so high for an awesome, thoughtful, introspective, retrospective about what went well, what went poorly, what could have gone better, where things worked, and how we might do better in all of the upcoming releases. Some of those processes have already been implemented into 1.4, but please do take a look at that doc. Saad and Michael and Brad and Paul and Tim, and I'm probably missing someone.
Yeah, it was primarily, I think, drafted by I think it started with me and Brad, and we sort of put together a lot of the details and tried to piece together what happened. And then, we added in a lot of work from like Ben Saad and Steve Watt from Red Hat, really contributed to it. It sounds like, can I take a step back or?
Go for it.
So it's a little Red Hat and Google focused because a lot of the participants in the SIG at the point in 1.3, it was mostly Red Hat and Google, where now the storage SIG is a much, much wider group, so big that we have over 30 people in it now, 30 different representatives and many, many different companies. But if you read the doc, it was Red Hat and Google that was very much driving those efforts back then. It had 2 results that I think are worth commenting on in the community. One of them is that I think it led to the exception process. We sort of needed an exception process and didn't have one in 1.3, and we used it several times in 1.4, or we forced ourselves to really think about the impact of what we were going to add or not add in 1.4 because we had an exception process, and it's linked inside the retrospective in 1.3, and it's in several links that have gone out since. And the other piece I think that was useful for doing the exercise was there were just a lot of miscommunications between sometimes Red Hat and Google, and also just between the storage SIG and the greater SIG, greater community of Kubernetes. And it really made it more clear of, a lot of bridges got built, and a lot of bridges that were not in as good repair as they should be for communication got fixed up. So I'm very glad we did the exercise. It was a lot more time consuming than any of us had expected. And if you look at the doc, you're like, that's it. It seems like we all need to talk to each other a little bit more and think a little bit more. I mean, it isn't really initially it was going to be a postmortem, and then the more we looked at it, we realized code didn't really break as much as the way we were interacting wasn't as optimal as it should be. And I really also believe this fed into why 1.4 had a lot less surprises at the end than 1.3 did. Because of the 1.3 experiences, a lot of the times we would look back and say, we got burned doing this before, maybe we shouldn't do it again. And that's it.
And as I said, it's a really great example. I don't think we're going to need to do this for every release by any stretch. It was an enormous amount of work, and thank you all for taking that on. But when we have issues that come up, especially issues that aren't straight up code technical decisions, I think it's really worth looking at the way we work as a community. And clearly 1.4 has behaved and been less full of surprises in a way that reflects what we learned in 1.3. So I cannot say enough good things about that, especially because, to your point, the storage SIG, as an example, has grown so much between 1.3 and 1.4, and I think we're seeing that across most of the special interest groups. The involvement of the community has been on the increase, and our communications have been getting better at the same time, which is awesome. So thank you all for your contributions in all of that.
I want to just dovetail off of that real quickly, if I can, and ask, in the context of 1.5, that whatever deadline we put in place for our 1.5 planning be far enough away that we can have another set of retrospectives around 1.4 and fold that learning into 1.5.
Yeah, go for it.
So I believe TJ has got the 1.5 deadlines already up in the features repo. If you go to the features repo and click on like the 1.5 directory, I believe all the dates are there now. And this is something I've been relying on heavily myself. So please look at them, and if you feel like they're not applicable or they're too rushed in certain ways, we can start that discussion.
So last time on 1.3, we did a separate 1 hour retrospective for what happened with 1.3, and then found in that retrospective that we needed a second 1 hour retrospective. And we did those on consecutive weeks separate from this community meeting. I think we should start with one and plan that for probably not next Friday, but a week from Friday. So I will get that scheduled up, and I will see if Jason is game to facilitate again. And we can start with that, and hopefully it fits within the timelines that TJ has. I have to go check those. But thank you, Aaron. That's a great recommendation. And to your lovely quippy comment, software is about communications. Yes, and as it turns out, given that we're trying to build a giant distributed compute platform, that is part of why we are trying to build a giant distributed decision-making engine through the special interest groups. Because if we have learned anything from Conway's Law over the years, if we made this a tightly hierarchical organization, we would have a tightly hierarchical piece of software. But that does increase the complexity of the communications around all of this. So thank you all for your efforts on that. All right. I had one more notice, which is I sent out last week the information about the Developer Summit. Please, everyone who is interested in participating, even if you think you might be getting an invite just because you are, you know, the rock star that each of you is, please sign up anyway. I will dedupe this. So there's a form linked off of this this summit information page that is to express interest in attending. And there is also a link off of there to submit topics for discussion. And I think that you should submit any topic you think we should really have a longer discussion on to that, and then we will take that whole list out to the community to do some voting to try and get a best unconference-ish agenda. So we're going to try and build most of the agenda ahead of time, but not have presentations. So these will be discussion topics, not presentations. And if multiple people propose the same thing, then we will have multiple facilitators, in theory, having very different positions on things, which will also, I think, be great fun. So it's related to the open spaces and unconference schedule mechanisms in order to let you know how it will function day of, but it is not we generate the agenda first thing in the morning. We're trying to generate the agenda ahead of time. Does anybody have any questions about that? Did you all sign up? Do any of you care? The link to the developer thing is in the notes, and I will drop it into the chat right now as well.
Yeah, just reading that.
Okay. Does anyone else have any other topics? We have 11 whole minutes, which is unusual. Thank you, Joe, for dropping the link in.
Hey, sorry, quick question. So I do see that link. I do see the link to propose a topic, but I don't necessarily see the link to just sign up to participate.
Yeah, wait, there should be one.
And it's probably me.
Structured unconference link, there we go. Any interested party should enter the lottery via this form. It's in the Who Should Go section.
Oh, got it, this form keyword, got it.
Yeah, no worries. Thank you for saying, for piping up that it was not obvious. I will bold it and make it more obvious, blinky tags and all that.
Marquee would be great.
Marquee, all right. All right, anyone else? Questions, topics they want to talk about in this meeting going forward? I've had a couple of people say they want more topics led by non-Googlers, and I think that is a super awesome suggestion. And the way to get things on the agenda is just to go, hey, Sarah, I have a thing I put on the agenda, and then you get to talk. I will sometimes tap Googlers for topics because I have them handy, but for the most part, I need to understand what people want to hear about, and then even if you don't have someone that you know could speak about it, I can find someone and I can go looking out in the community if I have topics. But otherwise, I end up doing things like, hey, Clayton, do you have a thing to talk about maybe today? Or, hey,
I would make the argument that I think Sarah would even give more weight to a non-Googler agenda item than a Googler agenda item. So
you know me well.
So please feel free.
Yeah, Ihor's got the whole process down. He drops things into the agenda, and then he sends me a note going, I put a thing in the agenda, and he gets time. So where you have topics or things you want to discuss, let me know. Thank you. Because otherwise I am going to start calling on people, and then we have Clayton going, wait, what? Awesome. All right. Well, thank you all for your hard work toward 1.4. The next time we meet, we will have a release, I hope.
We will.
We will. We will. We have a confirmation. All right. Happy Thursday, and I will see you all next week. Oh, that actually one thing before I stop. I won't see you all next week because I cannot host this next week. I need a volunteer host. I see Joe ducking out of the frame. That was clever, Joe.
Hey, I'm new to joining the community hangouts, so I'm happy to host it if it would be helpful.
Okay.
From Intel.
Say again who you are from Intel. I'm sorry.
It's Matt Brender.
Oh, Matt Brender. Oh, hi, Matt Brender. Sorry, your video didn't pop up because I pinned something. Yeah, I'd be happy to have you do it. He was the first to volunteer to jump under the bus.
Yeah, Nicholas helped by volunteering me.
I'm happy to help Matt also. So even though I was ducking out, if you need me.
Okay, I will hook up Joe and Mr. Brender, and I will schedule a quick half hour to make sure our technologies all work, because that's really the hardest part of this. Otherwise, it's just a tap dance.
Totally.
Okay, awesome. Thank you both for your volunteerism. It is always noted and always appreciated. I will be mailing chocolate. Have a great afternoon, and I will talk with all of you in 2 weeks, but Matt and Joe, apparently you will all be in good hands for next week. So thank you.
Thank you, Sarah.
See you.